Welcome to GNN, Gobster News Network.
All right, how you doing? Welcome to the Gobster News Network, the sister channel of Gobster, Thoughts of a Brummie. This is where I do a little bit more deep dive. This is where we'll do quick shorts and just generally do what the news does best in a sort of different form than sitting in the car. This is always going to be in the studio, either here, which is in the house, or when I finally finish sorting it out, the main studio in the shed opposite the house. So the 15-minute cities. Again, another tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory that was never going to happen. You know, a bit like electric cars will be charged tax and pay per mile, because that was never going to happen either. Now, was it? So in any case, surprise, surprise, it looks like yet again another conspiracy theory turns out to be true. So Labour opens the door to star on the list 15-minute cities across Britain. Traffic restrictions for motorists will promote walking and cycling in city centres. Remember, that was supposed to be what the clean air zones were supposed to do. You know, like the ones in London that you still have to pay now, even if you're in an electric vehicle. Yeah, that one. Any case, let's go on. Labour has approved a rollout of Stanley's 15-minute cities across the UK, the Telegraph can reveal. Ministers have said that they will allow councils to use driver licence databases to impose fines on drivers who fall foul of traffic filters, which restrict driving in certain areas. The controls on motorists, which are to be implemented for the first time in Oxford city centre later this year, have been described as perverse by motoring groups. It's not just motoring groups. Can't you see where the control comes in here? Okay, so let's carry on. The 15-minute city is based on an idea that a person can access amenities within a quarter of an hour by walking or cycling. In some cases, this can result in traffic restrictions being brought in for drivers, forcing us to stay where we are. But before I go any further, this is Labour's attempt to throw us back to the olden days. You know, where people used to be born, grow up, live, and then die, never leaving their village. Here, you will never leave your 15-minute area, thus restricting humanity. It's very much like we used to have, or what they're trying to do now is make super councils to make us all become kingdoms again. And now they're talking of making 47 police forces into 12, which will match the kingdoms that we've created, and we will install mayors who will rule those kingdoms. I mean, we are literally going back to medieval times. But of course, people who say things like this are nothing but tin hat wearing conspiracy theorists. Yet here we go again. Okay, shall we carry on? The most high-profile example of this plan is Oxford, where the council put forward proposals to divide the city into 6 15-minute neighbourhoods. Under the scheme, drivers would need a residence permit that allows 100 days of free travel per year through the 6 traffic filters during operating hours. So they will lock you into your area when they want to. I'm still waiting for you to allow that to sink in, because, well...
What will it take for you to wake up?
She has a valid point, but in any case, let's carry on. Meanwhile, a separate permit to allow 25 days of free travel per year through 6 congestion charge areas locations during charging hours, and after these, drivers face fines if they travel without the relevant permission. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you will have to ask permission to go anywhere. Good for the environment, though, of course, apparently, and I'm sure they'll spin it any other way, but you do realise that means going on holiday, not only will you have to pay per mile, because if you think it's just for electric cars, you're sorely mistaken. Because what they do is with electric cars, it's going to be on their tests and it's going to be on their mileage. But then, of course, that isn't going to work, because we all know it's not going to work. So the solution will be, that's right, cameras everywhere and everybody gets logged. And once they can do it like that, then you will be charged per mile. So not only will you have to pay extra money to go on holiday, You'll also now have to have the relevant permit, and as long as you're a good citizen, you can. Otherwise, I'm afraid you can't leave your city, your little 15-minute village, and you will stay there. Checkpoints everywhere. Yeah, and you wonder why they want to centralise the police and create the British FBI. Is it beginning to drop in? I mean, is it?
What will it take for you to wake up?
So, Greg Smith, Shadow Transport Minister, said this is the blueprint for a national rollout. Labour has given the green light for draconian councils like Oxfordshire to police how people live, move, drive using cameras and fines backed by DVLA data. And also remember, they want to roll out facial recognition all over the country because it's good for fighting crime. Go ask the Chinese about the facial recognition system and see if you think the same. Because again, isn't it? Woman again. In 3, 2, 1. Oxford is the test case, but this is Labour's blueprint for the country. Page out of the East German playbook. Duncan White, a director of the Alliance of British Drivers, said 15-minute cities were an abomination. I think he's being very kind there. He said it was perverse. I agree with that. And Stalinist. Yes, indeed. Approach to social control, adding to encroachment on the civil liberties, and it's a page out of the East German playbook. With the 15-minute cities, you have to, in effect, apply for an internal passport to go and visit your granny. From a civil liberties perspective, it's nonsensical. From an operational point of view, it's bizarre. But from a governmental point of view, it's absolutely perfect. And of course, the ultimate thing to allow you to do this would be, of course, yes, that's right, you've guessed it, the digital ID. You know, the thing that everybody celebrates they've got rid of. No, they just changed the wording. It hasn't gone anywhere. Jack Cousins, head of road policy at the AA, said what local authorities sometimes struggle to remember is that the car continues to remain the main method which people travel around our country. Not for much longer it won't be. Cars coming into town centres generate a huge amount of parking revenue for local authorities, and the local high street is dependent on strong, consistent footfall. Well, you'll still get that. And cars are probably the easiest way for people to get in and out of town centres, but they don't want you to do that, do they? We don't want barriers that harm the national economy and the local economy. Yes, that's exactly what they want. So here's Oxford. Here's Oxford, and what you'll do is you'll have, so showing a low resolution version match, make sure the crowd's spoiled. Well, it doesn't matter. There you go. So they'll all be sealed off. Congestion charge cameras and LTN cameras to stop you going anywhere. Under the previous government, plans were drawn up to block councils from using driver licence databases to implement traffic restriction measures. In 2023, the Tories announced that they would consult on legislative changes and new guidance, including removing councils' access to DVLA data, where schemes relied on excessive camera enforcement, rationed car use, or failed to command the backing of residential local businesses. Simon Lightwood, the local transport minister, responded to the parliamentary question by Richard Holden, the shadow transport secretary, by confirming Labour would proceed with this approach. This means councils across the country could follow Oxford's lead, and will, introducing camera-enforced traffic filters. It comes after the Telegraph revealed last month that Labour started cracking down on parking spaces. Well, of course they have. Under the plans published by the government, councils were required to impose sweeping parking restrictions, limiting the number of spaces on new housing developments without any justification. So, if you live in a housing estate now that has little car parking spaces, the council will be allowed to just remove them and not allow you to park your car where you want to or where you used to, because you'll do as you're told. Labour's also dropped plans to curb the rollout of the controversial low traffic neighbourhoods and the 20-mile-an-hour zones. Ministers ditched reforms that would have restricted council power to control traffic and levy unfair fines and parking charges. A Department of Transport spokesman, local councils use DVLA data to help keep our roads safe. How? And crack down on dangerous driving. How? How they use this information is up to the council, so it works best for their communities. Right, so in other words, that's just absolving you of any responsibility at all. Well, we give them the information, we couldn't really give a shit how they use it. Spokesman added that implementing traffic filters and other traffic management measures is a local matter. We're having nothing to do with it, but make sure you get it done. And the government has no plans to get involved with the rollout of these schemes. Well, of course they do. So the whole idea of a 15-minute city, and I showed you a small map earlier, but I found a bigger map, so we could just have a look. So this is how it would fare. You can see the areas that are marked off in different colours. So basically, here, where they've got these little lines here, these are where they would have things that look like that, or other barriers that will actually filter you. So look, if you live here, you can go anywhere you want until you get to there, or there, or there, and then you've got to have a permit to go there, or over there. And it works all the way around, so it stops people coming in. Although it's quite interesting that there isn't any here for some unknown reason. But you've got filters that prevent you from getting in and out of areas. So, for instance, if you live in Wood Farm and Hollow Way is where your nan lives, you need a permit to go from your house there to go to there. And if you don't have a permit, you'll get a fine. Also, as I said, showing you there, you will have areas like this which will be just blocked off, where you aren't allowed to drive at all. Although these, although bolted to the ground, could easily be removed and have been in some circumstances. Not that I'm condoning any such action, but you know what I mean. So you can actually see how very restrictive it is. So if you want to go from yellow to red, I presume you've got to have 1, 2, 3, potentially 4 permits excuse me, to get from one side of the city to the other, or I presume you can go all the way round the outside. So a 10-minute journey that way, a 45-minute journey that way. And I'm wondering how that would work as well. So basically, you would be confined, especially at certain times of the day where these barriers would be shut. You are severely confined to your area. But it's all good for the environment, is it not? So you tell me if 15-minute cities are such a good idea. And can you believe that what was frowned upon and derided and ridiculed by people like myself and others mentioning such things, yeah, well, here they are. So I wonder what the next conspiracy theory will come true. We are slowly but steadily beginning to live in 1984. George Orwell, but you never realised you were writing actually a manual, not a story. Any case, I hope you enjoyed this little deep dive into 15-minute cities here on GNN, Gobster News Network. If you did, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. Please comment down below. Links to any social medias are also in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I shall look forward to catching you in the next one. Ta-ra for now.
Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe to the channel.